Okay, this video is about movement. I'm only going to talk about movement rules, nothing else. So the fact that you need to be in supply to start movement, we're not discussing. We're going to try and keep this modular. Right, first type you're going to come across is operational movement. Now, operational movement, virtually every unit has 6 movement points in an operational thing, and you basically pay 1 for each hex. There's no special extra costs for moving into an enemy occupied hex, out of a hex, or from one hex adjacent to an enemy or to another one, though there are some little rules we'll get onto in a minute. Certain types of units like forward repair docks, they only have a movement of 1, but there are things like tugs. Now tugs can move FRDs and mobile bases, but it costs them 2 per hex entered while they're towing something. You can move your units individually, or you can move them as stacks. If you move them as stacks, they go as fast as the slowest unit. You can pick stuff up, drop stuff off. If you pick up a unit, so you move 3 hexes and then pick up a unit and move another 3 hex, the unit you picked up forfeits any remaining movement points it may have had. There are special types of enemy movement that can take place in the operational movement phase. You've got reserve movement, where a ship or a fleet marked with a reserve marker like these here can move up to 6 hexes, either to create a battle hex or enter a battle hex. Now, a battle hex is effectively a hex where the units are 2 opposing fractions in the same hex. Okay, now, the thing to remember about reserve movement is you can't use it for anything else. I couldn't suddenly say, oh, I'm going to move 6 movement points from here to wherever. It's got to be used to get into or create a battle hex. Another type of similar movement is what you call reaction movement. Each unit or fleet has a reaction radius of like a zone of control into the 6 hexes around it. That means if your units move into that space, they can react into a space. So if I moved into here, from this fleet here could react into my hex to create a battle hex. Yet again, you can only use it to react into a hex to create a battle hex. You can't just use it. Now, some types of stacks can have extended reaction radiuses. That's if you've got something like a scout ship here, that allows you to extend your reaction radius up to 2 hexes. Another thing that I mentioned about movement always being 1 per hex, there's a slight exception which is called pinning. If you're pinned, i.e. you're in a hex with other enemy ships, you can only exit that hex by leaving an equivalent number of your ships that matches the number of enemy ships. Next type of movement is strategic movement, which enables ships to move over vast areas of space, and it's based on the idea of you've got to move from a strategic movement node, which is a base, star base, battle station, planet, major planet, minor planet, capital planet, and you can move up to 6 in each step. So I could go from here 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 to the capital planet, and then I could move on again up to 6 in each step. If I moved and stopped, I couldn't move and stop here. I couldn't go, all right, I'm going to move 6 hexes to here, because that's not strategic movement. You're not moving from node to node. The thing to remember is strategic movement. Each race has a different strategic movement amount. Now, Klingons and the Federation have a strategic movement allowance of 15 units. Everyone else has 10 units, and Tholians have 5. Another type of strategic movement is you can move out of an off-map area, and say I moved to there, and then I could start a chain of moves, strategic moves from that point. That will become apparent quite early in the game, because certain units arrive by strategic movement from these outer star areas. You can move into an allied territory, but if you do that, it costs you one of your movement points of yours to move into the enemy, into your friendly thing, and then it'll cost any further movement from then on. If I moved into Federation space, it cost me 1 Kint's point into Federation space, and then if I carried on moving through Federation space, it would cost me 1 Federation movement, and I could go onto Gorn space there. So you could see how you can move huge amounts of space across the board. We won't discuss cloak movement because none of the nations in this battle have cloaks. Nothing to remember about strategic movement is certain units don't go against the strategic movement allowance. Anything that's newly created that turn can use strategic movement for free. You've also got the fact your strategic movement allowance can be decreased. If you lose a star base, you lose 2 points worth of strategic movement allowance for each one lost. So that pretty much covers all the types of movement. Somebody's bound to say I've missed something, but that'll do to get you started with movement.